Hello, I'm going to wait a little while so that people have a little bit of time to join us before I start giving the talk. But we are live now, and I can see that a few people are starting to join in, and that notifications are going out that it's live, so hopefully a few more people will join us. But I am just going to wait for a few moments and give people a time to join in. Okay, right, well, I will start now, and I'll start with a bit of an introduction. Yep, I can see a few people are joining in now. That's absolutely great. Hello, Jane. Really nice that you could make it. Anyway, I'm going to start the talk now. There will be time for some questions afterwards, so I'll look into the comments later and answer any questions. It should take about half an hour, I think, this talk. Anyway, I'm vlsualisation, and thanks for coming to hear me give this talk on magic for the month. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I write a Bad Witches blog, and I've also written a few Pagan Portals titles for Moon Books. Magic for the Month is a new series of Facebook Live talks that I'm doing this year, 2021, and this is the first one. I am doing it live, but it will be recorded, so if you miss any of it or you want to watch it later or rewatch it, you will be able to. It will be on Facebook, and I will also put it on my YouTube channel, vlsualisation. Now, I am using notes. I've got notes for this talk on my Kindle. It's basically so I don't forget anything I want to say. But if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my Kindle. So we're now in the middle of January. I live in London, in southeast England, and here it is a really cold, grey month. It feels like the heart of winter, even though the daylight hours are slowly starting to grow longer. It can be a real hard time to do anything except stay indoors in the warm. But hopefully I can offer a few ideas to make the month a little bit more magical. Now, at the start of the year, I drew a card for the month from the Messenger Oracle. I shuffled the cards, which I'm not going to do now, because if I do shuffle them again now, I won't find the one I drew then. But I shuffled the cards, and then I ran my fingers over them, sensing the one that felt right. I turned it over, and it was Trust in Magic. Now, that's the way that magic works, by tuning into the universe and feeling the correct course of action with senses that aren't purely reason or logic. This card is about listening to your intuition and what your heart is saying, as well as what your head is telling you. Now, I will read the definition that comes with the book because it describes it. Trust in magic. Magic is the mysterious and coincidental. It is at the heart of those moments of synchronicity and knowing. It is woven into the awareness that there is more to life than what you can see. It is born of that moment when you step without fear and with a loving heart into the void. Voice your desire and have Great Spirit send his messengers to show you the way. Trust in magic. It is real and it surrounds you. Now, at the moment, many of us are very uncertain about the future, and there's a lot of good reasons for that uncertainty. But when you're in a dark place, it's even more important to use all your senses, including your intuition, to find a way out. It doesn't mean that you should ignore doing the practical stuff. It is actually really important to do the practical stuff. But listen to what your heart is saying as well as your head. They're both really important. One of the things I've been doing since the start of the month is listening to my heart when I feel a moment of happiness each day. And I've been photographing those things that spark that moment of happiness. And then I've been sharing those pictures on Instagram. If you want to see the pictures, you can find me on Instagram as Starzalucia. That's Starzalucya. I know that's the reverse way round from my name, but I made a mistake when I signed up to Instagram. So I'm Starzalucia rather than Lucia Starza on Instagram. It's also something you could try yourself. It doesn't have to be anything big. One of my pictures was a coffee mug that gets me going in the morning when it makes me feel good when I see it. I photographed books, some fresh fruit, this shawl, uh, even a new light bulb that I put into my bedroom. The old one was broken, and I was making use with a table lamp, and I bought a new light bulb, and it was so much brighter than the old one had been. Now a friend, when I posted that one up, a friend commented, and he's absolutely right, but when it's gloomy outside the windows, turning on a bright light indoors can make a huge difference to some people's moods. I also play rock music on Spotify on my phone when I need a bit of cheering up, and I photograph that. Um, Now, they might all be little things, and they might not really seem like magic, but anything that makes January just that little bit more cheerful is good as far as I'm concerned. Now, I can't really talk about January without mentioning resolutions. Some people love them, some people hate them. I'm not trying to tell anyone what's right for them in that respect, but I will talk about a tip that I was given quite a long while ago now by a friend and fellow author, Sandra Lawrence. And the idea is that not just making a single resolution, but a whole list of them to do over the year um, means that you're more likely to succeed in some of them. Sandra says she normally makes a list that's several hundred long. I'm not quite in her league. Um, but the idea is that the longer the list, the more you're likely to do. They shouldn't all be chores either. I mean, it's all very well to have a few chores there. Perhaps all want to live a bit healthier, but have fun things there as well. And craft projects, anything really, ambitions, things you can make a start on. Now, on my blog each year, I set 10 resolutions, so yeah, nowhere as near as many as Sandra. They usually include visiting new places, stuff I'm going to research and blog about, crafting projects I want to do, and some magical intentions for the year. One of my resolutions this year was starting this Facebook Live series of posts. I did do a few talks on YouTube, Facebook Live, and on the Children of Artemis and the Magical Women Conference last year. And I thought, I'm going to do a regular Facebook Live series of talks on magic for the month. Anyway, this is the first one, so I'm on the right step. You don't only have to set resolutions at the start of the month either. Any time in January is good. Right now, the moon has just started to wax or increase after the dark moon, which was on Wednesday. In England, it was on Wednesday. I think it was the night before in some parts of the world. Varies a tiny bit depending on time zone. The phase of the lunar cycle when the moon is new but growing is particularly good for setting intentions. The full moon is on the 28th, so any time up to then is really good for setting resolutions. Also, the sun enters Aquarius in a few days' time on the 19th of January, and Aquarius is good for anything about new ideas. So, if you didn't make resolutions at the start of the year, you could do so in the next couple of weeks. In the community book I edited, Everyday Magic, a Pagan Book of Days, Brendan Howlin, who is one of the contributors, points out that January is far more a time for thinking than acting. And this is what he wrote. Think more, act later. In the Northern Hemisphere, people are just becoming aware of the small growing spark of light of the returning sun. Think about what you would like to grow in your life this year. Is there a personal goal that you would like to accomplish? Do you want to spend more time with your family or less? What about your friends? More or less? I'm thinking that's quite a big one this year. I certainly want to spend a bit more time with my family. Anyway, now is the time to think about it, not to do it, because it's the wrong time for doing that. From Imbolc or Imbolc onwards, that's the time to act. Obviously, when the rules in our local area allow it. Now, Imbolc is on February the 1st, and so really in February, that's a good time to really start doing things. January is for planning things, and Brendan sums up that really that's perhaps the reason why a lot of January New Year's resolutions fail, because we're trying to do them at a time when the energy just isn't right for doing that. So don't feel guilty if you've tried a New Year's resolution earlier on and you feel you failed. You really haven't. Just set it as the first attempt in a goal you don't have to achieve until the end of the year. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself a second chance and even a third chance. 3 is often the magic number after all. Now, talking about 3 being a magic number, here's a little 3-knot spell that you can do in January to add magical energy to any resolution you've made or hopes or wishes for the year ahead. Knot magic is very traditional. There are many different kinds of knot magic, and some work in different ways. But this particular spell is to help you fix your intentions. You're kind of knotting your intentions in place. And all you need is a piece of string or cord or wool or ribbon or anything similar. What I'm going to use is a piece of ribbon that came round a Yule gift. I do like to upcycle things. I keep all the bits of ribbon that come from gifts, and many of them get used in spells or in crafting projects. I'm a huge fan of recycling and upcycling. If you don't have anything to upcycle though, that's fine. You can use a bit of string or a bit of wool, or really anything you can tie knots in. Now what you do is you tie 3 knots in the cord, kind of obviously. With the first knot, you visualize your first steps towards whatever it is you're wishing for or intending to do. With the second knot, you visualize yourself achieving your goal. And with the third knot, you visualize the forces of the universe helping your wish, and what you have visualized come reality. And you can say these words, they're a variation of the traditional words to say. By knot of 1, my spell's begun. By knot of 2, my wish come true. By knot of 3, so mote it be. Now you don't only have to use that spell in January, although it's quite a nice one to use then. It's a simple spell that you can do at any time of the year. Do keep your knotted cord safe. You don't want to go losing it. After your wish has come true, you can give thanks to the universe and untie the knots at the same time. Now it's always good to give some kind of offering, both when you've made a wish, done a spell, or done a ritual, or when your wish has been granted. In January, one of the suitable offerings is to put food and water out for birds and wildlife. And that also gives a good reason to go outside into nature, and it definitely helps the wildlife at this time of year. But a bit more about going out into nature. And before that, I'm just going to have a little sip of water. It's not gin, it is water. I'll have a gin later. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with staying indoors in the warm in the winter months. But if you can face going outdoors, then a bit of fresh air and a walk, if you're up to it, can sometimes help with the January blues, as well as giving you a chance to look around in the garden. Now, I think we all know that, but as pagans who celebrate the cycle of the seasons and going out observing what's happening in nature every month really is really invaluable. Seeing things with our own eyes is far better than just reading a book about the wheel of the year and what that says should be happening in nature, because it can be quite different from year to year. Now, one of the things that I've done in the past, and I'm starting to do again this year, is create a mandala from natural objects, including flowers, leaves, berries, and so on. And that gives me a reason to venture outdoors and really look at what's happening. In January, there's a lot of bare branches, but if you look, you can also find evergreens, berries, and still a few flowers. I pick the ones that call to me, and then I take a few indoors to create my mandala by arranging them on a sheet of paper. I then meditate on what I've created, and then I photograph it to keep a record. I've got here, I don't know whether you can see that, but that's a photograph of the one I did last week from flowers and things in my own garden. Oh, that's gone weird, hasn't it? That's a problem with using a Kindle. I don't know. Can you see that better? Yes, I think you can see that better rather than the books I was reading in the background of my Kindle. You can see that it's live because there's errors. Anyway, I hope you could see that picture in the end. There's ivy, flowering heather, orange and red rose hips, and even a little honeysuckle in bloom. Now, none of those will last very long, but the symbolism to me is that even when everything seems most gloomy, there's still life to be found. It might be transient, short-lived like a flower, but where there's life, there's hope. Creating a mandala each month from things found in nature is a reflection of our own feelings as the seasons change, as well as actually what's happening out there. If you do this over the months and then do it again in different years, you can observe how each year has patterns of similarities, but is never quite the same. Now, I should add that I'm using the term mandala pretty loosely to mean a picture or pattern with a spiritual significance to meditate on. I do know that the original sense of the word comes from Hinduism and Buddhism, and it's a picture that has a pattern that is a reflection of the universe and the connectedness of life. And my use is a little bit more eclectic. I'm yet to think of a more appropriate word, but if you can think of one, then do leave a comment, because I am aware that there could be a better word to use. Now I'm going to have another sip of water, because the next thing I'm going to do is give a guided visualization called the January Garden. I've written it especially for this month to celebrate what's happening in nature this time of year in my part of the world. And I based it on things I've seen in my own garden. So the themes include nature, wintry weather, and taking a close look at water in its crystalline frozen form. And the nice thing about it is that you can do it even if you can't physically get outdoors. Guided visualizations are journeys that we make in our minds using a script created to help us experience a story as though we're part of it. They're intended to help us know ourselves better, as well as attune ourselves to the cycle of life and the cycle of nature. I've written a book called Pagan Portal's Guided Visualizations, but this guided visualization I'm going to give now is a completely new one. It's not one in my book. If you want to do this, make sure you're in a safe and comfortable place where you won't be disturbed. If you aren't anywhere suitable, then you can listen to it as though you would a story, but not try to actually visualize anything. Don't do a guided visualization if you're driving a car or stirring a pot over the stove. That's the general health and safety warning. Ideally, guided visualizations are best done with the eyes closed. So first of all, I'll ask you to take a few deep breaths, relax, and close your eyes. Then at points in the narrative, I'll pause to enable you to continue the story to yourself in your own way. And that might be to visualize things as they come into your mind's eye, but some people work better just imagining words rather than visualizing pictures or images. That's fine. Do whatever works for you. So I'll give you a little moment to get comfortable if you want to. Find somewhere where you can sit still and is safe, and you're not going to be disturbed. Just a little sip of water again. Okay, if you're ready now, let's begin. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths, in and out, in and out, in and out, and relax. Visualize the following. It is a clear, bright, frosty morning in January. Visualize putting on a winter coat and boots and walking out of a warm and cozy home through a door into a garden. The sun is shining, but outside the air is cold, and glints of frost sparkle on everything the light touches. Look around you. Most of the trees and hedges stand bare, yet some are evergreen. There are still some bright berries and perhaps some rose hips, although many on brown stalks. Some flowers still bloom in winter time, few and far between perhaps, but maybe you can spot them. The flower beds are mostly brown earth, but you can just see green shoots of early spring bulbs starting to push their way through the soil. The grass on the lawn is green, but under a crisp white coating of frost, and in places perhaps some brown fallen leaves left from last year, also frost-rimed. Spend a little while exploring the garden. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you feel? While examining the things in the garden, you spot a pool of water that has frozen over. Perhaps it's just a puddle of rainwater. Maybe it is a bird bath, or perhaps it is a pond or a lake. Whatever it is, you are drawn to look at it. The surface is covered with ice. Look at the ice. It isn't purely a plain, flat surface. There are geometrical patterns running through the crystalline, frozen water. The sun glints on them, making them stand out and shimmer. Spend a little while looking at the patterns. Contemplate them and think about them. Are they all similar, or are there differences? Perhaps they're all, in their own way, unique. Or perhaps they all seem to form part of a cohesive whole. How does it seem to you? Is there anything in particular in the crystalline water that draws your attention? Spend some time studying and looking. After a while, your attention is drawn below the frozen water to look through the layer of ice into the dark water, still liquid below the crystalline surface. Peer into it. Do you see anything there? If so, what is it? Is what you see a natural thing or something man-made? Is it something meant for you? Perhaps it's something you had lost and have now found once more. Is it something that should be there, or something that would be better removed? Do you want to break the ice and free or retrieve whatever is below? Or do you want to leave it there? Decide if you need or want to do anything, and if so, what. It is your choice, but visualize doing that now. Once you have made that choice and acted, or not, look at the item again, if there was one. Does it seem different now? If it's something you've retrieved, is it something to keep or something to leave in the garden? Having acted as you feel is right, look up from the frozen pool. Look around the garden again. Then make your way back to the doorway. It is time for you to leave the garden and to return indoors to the warm and cosy home. Take off your winter boots and coat. Visualize doing that now. Then, when you are ready, take a deep breath, shake your fingers and toes, and open your eyes to the real world. Okay, now I hope you found that interesting and you've all come back to the real world okay now. After you've done any magical or psychic work or done a guided visualization, you should ground to make sure you're fully back to reality. And the best way to do that is to have something to eat and drink. If that's not possible, then you can tap the table or a hard surface a few times. Feeling something solid is quite a good way to ground, or you can press your feet into the ground. If you're watching this live and you have any questions about the guided visualization or anything else that I've mentioned, then you can leave comments. I see that a few people have left comments now. Now, what I'm going to do is look at the comments people have made, and I'm really happy to answer any questions. So, okay, I can see, first of all, a few people there. Hello. I'm sorry I didn't say hello to everyone early on. I was looking at my talk and not looking at the comments. Hello, Jane. Hello, Becky. Hello, Electra. Hello, Magdalena. That's okay. I'm not sure whether there's any more comments. Yeah, okay. Hello, Heather. Okay, brilliant. Now, Jane is going to Wasseller Apple Tree, Monk. That's absolutely brilliant. Oh, thanks for the comments about the lovely floral mandala. I'm glad you actually managed to see it. Yeah, I struggle with a better word. Ah, okay. Jane says a yantra is something that you look at. I'll look into that. The real world is a lot warmer and cozy. Yeah, it is. Yes, that was quite a cold garden. I hope you didn't catch a chill when you were visualizing being in the garden. Warming up is a really good idea. It's a good way to ground as well. Uh, right, Richard says, very interesting and very pleasant too. Thank you. Heather says, lovely meditation. Thank you very much. Weirdly, I saw nothing in the pond, but as I came away from the pond, I retrieved a ring, is what Becky says. That's wonderful. And Heather found a ring too, an engagement ring lost years ago. Actually, yeah, that's rings are something, you know, obviously things like engagement rings and wedding rings. It actually reminds me that of it was a summer seaside holiday when I was a little tiny child with my parents, and it was a sandy beach. We'd been on a sandy beach all day, and my mum suddenly realised she had lost her wedding ring in the sand when we'd been building sandcastles, just like in the sand. Couldn't see it anywhere. Loads of other people on the beach started searching, looking through the sand, but we've been digging it about a lot because we've been building sandcastles. Anyway, it was got late in the evening, people packing up their deck chairs. Mum said, okay, right, that's it, I give up, I'm just going to scoop my hand in the sand one more time. And she did that, and the ring came up on her finger. That hand, obviously, was a wedding hand. But yeah, sometimes rings can go missing and can come back in very, very mysterious ways. Yeah, Richard, don't worry about my name. It's a strange name and people often spell it wrong. That's absolutely fine. Lucya, it's spelled, but yes, it does sound like Lucia or Lucia. Yeah. Okay, now, does anyone else have any comments or questions? Um, yeah, okay. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer to see if any more questions come up. In the meantime, I'm going to give the shameless plug for my books. Now, I've mentioned I've written a few books for Moon Books. Now, the community book I edited is this one. It's I edited and but there are about 50 different contributors, including myself. And it's got something for every day of the year. And that varies from spells to little short rituals to recipes to poems of the day, details about worldwide festivals in various different religious paths. So that's one of them. And there's my book, Pagan Portals Guided Visualizations. That came out on December the 11th, December just gone. And that's got a lot of different visualizations for the elements, the wheel of the year, and various other things. Then my first book that I wrote for Moon Books is Pagan Portals Candle Magic, and that's probably the one that sells the best. But yeah, that is I really enjoyed writing that. I was really proud of that. So that is my first book, Pagan Portals Candle Magic. And Pagan Portals Puppets and Magical Dolls. I've always had a real interest in dolls and the magic to do with dolls. And I think that probably started when I was a little girl and I read an Andre Norton book called Octagon Magic, I think it's called, or Octagon House. Anyway, it was about these old ladies and a little girl went to play in their house and they had this magical doll's house with tiny little dolls that represented them. And by making these dolls, they could go back in time and experience things. And I think that was probably what started my interest in magical dolls. So anyway, I wrote this book about it. I did a lot of research into different types of magical dolls. Um, and people often think that puppets are like voodoo dolls, which isn't a very accurate word or term. And they think that they're for curses, but they're absolutely not. They're really great for all sorts of magic. Plug away, says Heather. Okay, thank you very much. Anyway, it looks as though... Oh, Jane Waterford, I lost my wedding ring once when I was wearing my little fingers that no longer fit the ring finger, right through the whole top of the compost heap. No luck. And I found it in the veggie drawer at the bottom of the freezer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It it is so weird how rings just seem to have this kind of life of their own, don't they? Um, and the ones that you wear, the ones you choose to wear, and obviously even if what they're made of and the crystals that are in them, and I'm sure there's a blog post in The Magic of Rings. Maybe I'll look into that sometime. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye now. Thank you very, very much for coming to listen. This will stay on Facebook, so it can be watched later, and I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. And I will be doing similar Facebook Live talks throughout the year, every month. So the next one will be Magic for the Month in February. So, hope to see you then. Bye.